You know, the whole point of the movie is to analyze it.
Dissection.
Dissection.
Dissection. Dissection.
Dissection.
Dissection.
I want you to analyze.
What's the meaning of this?
Three insides look like.
We're going to do our first dissection now.
Systematic dissection.
What I'm asking is, in the reality of this movie,
I'm doing analysis. Get into the dissection.
then you have to analyze it. This movie is going to change your life.
This version of the movie is going to suck.
I love your certificate. Dissection.
Dissection is directing. I'm director of photography.
That is the star of this movie.
What, may I ask, is the meaning of this?
This is the end of the movie.
Hello. This is the first episode of Film Dissection. I will analyze movies of all genres, budgets, styles in a brand new way that will entertain you, but will also teach you something about the movie and filmmaking in general. This is not a review video, and I'm not a critic. I don't wish to be one. I will explain scene by scene how the movie came to be, how it was shot, and how it was edited. However, it's not gonna be a long, boring process. We need just the juicy parts. So in order to do that, I came up with a couple of rules for these videos. The absolutely necessary stages of making a movie, the ones you cannot avoid, are direction, lighting and blocking, and editing. We're going to focus mostly on those three. The fourth element is, of course, sound. In some cases, sound is even 50% of the movie. With some movies, it's even more important than that. Older movies didn't have much of a sound design, so we're only going to analyze sound for modern and bigger ones. We're going to examine the other elements as well: acting, special effects, costumes, set design. But again, I will not criticize older or cheaper films that couldn't afford big things. Instead of talking over boring still images and a few scenes of the movie, I will show you interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, if that exists. I will compare trailers and scenes from the director's or producer's filmography, and I will keep a fast pace. For the middle part, we're going to examine the direction and photography and what they could have done in comparison to other movies from that year or era. And we are going to even attempt to relight some scenes or colorize black and white movies. The final part is the editing, and it is worth examining every movie scene by scene, without long explanations, straight to the point, so that we can understand their quality a bit more. I'm also going to give each film a score, a fair one, without being subjective. Each episode will be presented in 3 different languages. The English one will have the international or US and UK titles and artwork. The German and Hellenic ones are going to have different graphics and titles, so you can check them out with subtitles if you wish. The links will be available in the description. Remember to subscribe, because I have a ton of videos coming up. And of course, the 3rd season of Cult Corner, which is going to be even bigger than the dissection episodes. The first film is called The Earth Dies Screaming, directed by Terence Fisher in 1964, a little-known film that is partly responsible for an entire subgenre of horror and science fiction. Let's go.
Suddenly, a man dies at the controls of a train. Suddenly, a car swerves to destruction. Suddenly, a plane dives to death. The Earth dies screaming, and the robots take over.
Terence Fisher, the man who made Dracula and Frankenstein for Hammer and basically created the wave of horror that brought us all the modern classics.
Hammer were amazingly fortunate to have Terence Fisher standing by, ready to take the whole Gothic revival on his shoulders. He was particularly useful in that he took the material seriously and solemnly, but he didn't try and jazz it up. He was, I think, a sort of English gentleman in the Conan Doyle storyteller tradition.
I was never a fan of those old Hammer productions. In fact, I watched them later in life, after having seen incredible and even very extreme things from the 70s, the 80s and on. So they never moved me, and I was never a fan of Dracula and Frankenstein in general. I don't even understand what the appeal was. But I have to say that Terence Fisher is somehow responsible for all the things we love today, especially in horror.
Once he got into the horror ghetto, as the critics called it, his work was diminished critically.
Terence Fisher was perfect for the Gothic.
But not just dark genres. Indirectly, he helped everything else as well. Without the success of Dracula, movies like Psycho, Mario Bava's early successes, the whole Italian horror wave, the American indie horror craze of the 70s, and even slasher movies wouldn't be the same. I'm not saying they wouldn't exist, but the more you dig into it, it looks like those little movies by Hammer that revived the Universal monsters from the 30s are to blame for everything.
The power of evil, the attraction of evil, and the lack of resistance to it.
Not because of their box office success, because of the countless magazines that suddenly appeared in the 60s and never stopped. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were the poster boys, the boy band pop stars, believe it or not. And Terence Fisher was giving interviews on print one after the other.
He was such a dear, kind, cuddly little man. Very shy. He had been an excellent editor. He didn't have time, no director would have, to give every actor 100% of his time what they had to do. So it's up to the individual actor to do his own homework. And often you'll suggest a thing to Teddy, and he'll either say, dear boy, that is a very good idea, and we will do so and so, and elaborate upon it. Or he'll say, no, because I don't think we can do that because of this.
We used to have a lot of laughs. And whenever he gave me a close-up, I used to make a point of walking up to him, putting a fiver into his hand. And we did it in such a way, he was a pretty good actor too, that the unit really believed that I'd bribed him for a close-up every time I did it, until they caught on, kind of a joke between us. He was a great arranger. He'd say, okay, show me what you should do, and then I'll tell you if it's right or wrong. And he knew what he was doing, believe me.
The Earth Dies Screaming is also important for one other reason. Together with The Last Man on Earth, it is the movie that influenced Night of the Living Dead. And there is a good explanation why those two films were made in the same year. They were produced by the same guy and company, Robert Lippert and his Lippert films. Sure, Carnival of Souls and Plague of the Zombies might also have influenced the first real Living Dead movie and the whole genre, but without those two Lippert films, I doubt we would end up having the exact style and movement of the ghouls and the whole dystopian background. Even though George Romero has stated that Last Man on Earth was his influence, we will see that The Earth Dies Screaming had the missing elements, especially when it comes to the first version of the script of Night of the Living Dead.
Suddenly, death descends on the four corners of the earth, and only a handful of human beings survive to live in fear, powerless to combat an unknown terror.
A little backstory to fill in the possible gaps. We gotta talk about Robert Lippert, the Roger Corman type of producer before Roger Corman. And they even worked together when Corman was looking for a distributor to sell his first creations.
I finally made a deal with Lippert, which was one of the small independent distribution companies. They thought my title was too hard, and they changed it to Monster from the Ocean Floor.
Lippert has produced over 300 movies, has even directed one in 1948. You may know a little thing called The Fly, for example, and its sequels. He worked with 3 or 4 different companies and brands, and it is remarkable that you cannot find much information about him, except this book, Talks Cheap, Actions Expensive, the films of Robert L. Lippert, by Mark Thomas McGee, which covers his entire biography and body of work. After a couple of sci-fi projects in the late 50s, Lippert was interested in making a type of Last Man on Earth picture and almost adapted a book called Earth Abides. A movie that came out in 1959, The World, The Flesh and the Devil with Harry Belafonte, killed that project because it had a similar theme with 3 people left alive in the entire world.
The most daring idea ever attempted in motion picture entertainment. The last 3 people alone in the world. What are the emotions of this girl, facing a future that no woman before her has ever known? What of the men, torn by basic human emotions, as they stand on the brink of the unknown?
You might even recognize this scene from the tribute they did in I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Anybody hungry? How about you, Betsy? You're looking kind of skinny lately. You haven't been getting your proteins.
Morning, Hank. Midway through the G's. Hey, who's the girl? Never mind. Hey, I'll see you in the morning. Promise, my friend, I will say hello to you today.
That's when Lippert and his writing partner Harry Spalding found the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, which was already purchased, with Hammer Films announcing its production in 1958.
Hi, I'm Joe Dante. Welcome to Trailers from Hell. In the late 50s, Richard Matheson adapted his novel into a screenplay for Britain's Hammer Films, but the British censor blocked production. They told Hammer no film that gruesome could be shown in Britain, effectively killing it.
There, and I wrote the script, and it wasn't made, and I assumed that they had been unhappy with what I'd done, but years later, Tony Hines, who was one of the 3 major producers there, said, no, it wasn't that at all. It was a wonderful script, but we were having such trouble with the censors at that time. The censors had really come down on them hard for both Frankenstein and Dracula. And when they got my script for I Am Legend, I think they changed the title to The Night Creatures. When they got my script, they said, oh, no, not again. You're not going to make this. And so they had to sell it to Lippert over here. I called the Writers Guild and said, please take my name off this. And they said, well, if we do that, you lose residuals in the future. And since I had 4 children, I thought, well, no, that's not a good idea. So I came up with Logan Swanson, which was, Logan was the maiden name of my wife's mother, and Swanson was the maiden name of my mother.
Let's see Terence Fisher's career now around the same time. After being an editor at Warner Bros. In the 40s, he started making dramas and light comedies as a director.
He went to train on a training ship, a naval training ship called HMS Convoy in the Mersey. And he was only young, he was a young teenager then, and he trained there. And then after that, after he left that, he went into shipping. He was in the merchant service. And then we don't quite know what happened. I think he just changed his mind. He thought, I'm not going to make this as my career. He was a very shy, gentle man. Totally, I mean, everybody gets the impression of a film director being a dictatorial, sometimes a dictatorial, with a megaphone and jumpers on.
Yes,
but Terry was just the opposite. He was shy, always consulted the actors about what they wanted to do, what they saw the scene as.
He started working for Hammer in 1951 with the movie Man-Bait, and the following year with Wings of Danger and Stolen Face, all of which were distributed in the US by Lippert Pictures. So here is your connection.
The Last Page was significant in that it was the first Hammer film directed by Terence Fisher. Their lease expired towards the end of 1951, so they then experimented with going back to a more formal studio arrangement by making a few films at Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. Now, among these was a very interesting, almost kind of proto-horror subject called Stolen Face, again directed by Terence Fisher.
He returned to Hammer in 1953 for Men Trap and A Race for Life in 1954, again distributed by Lippert Pictures.
Tony stuck here from grinding today.
While he made a lot of other movies in the 50s.
More amazing than the atom bomb is the fantastic space station built more than 1,000 miles up.
and even episodes for British television. And I bet many of you have seen close to none of those.
Whatever the emergency, dial 999 and the call goes to Scotland Yard's information room.
Then in 1957 he directed The Curse of Frankenstein, and everything changed.
Terence Fisher, who I've become to admire a great deal. Again, this is not a movie with a huge budget. This is a movie shot very efficiently in a very short time. But the amount of fear and suspense they got on screen with terrific performances in it. And it pushed the boundaries for its time for what you could see on the screen.
It was a huge hit, actually bigger than next year's Dracula at the box office.
This is the story of Dracula, a creature who destroys all whom he touches. How do you destroy a fiend who has so far proven himself indestructible?
Yet the latter is the film that established him and Hammer for good.
Seeing that when we saw Curse of Frankenstein, there was a graphic quality to it that was totally uncalled for, which made it extremely endearing to us. We enjoyed it a great deal. And I'll never forget the audience's reaction that midnight showing at the New York Paramount. They loved it. They loved it. We were about 15 years old, I think, my friends and myself. And then I think the better of the two film that we really felt went further was The Horror of Dracula. You know, there's nothing like the introduction of Dracula in that picture, where he simply walks down the stairs and walks over to Jonathan Harker and says, "Hello, I'm Dracula."
He was the golden ticket for Hammer films, with hit movies like Revenge of Frankenstein.
In the year 1860, I, Baron Frankenstein, was sentenced to death on the guillotine. But I have escaped the guillotine, and I shall avenge the death of my creation.
The Hound of the Baskervilles, The Mummy, The Man Who Could Cheat Death.
I'm sorry.
Too late. Too late.
The Stranglers of Bombay.
You have sinned against the goddess Kali. Those that sin against Kali must suffer the pain of never looking upon her face again.
The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll. The Brides of Dracula.
Transform the most beautiful girls into monsters.
Sword of Sherwood Forest. The Curse of the Werewolf. The Phantom of the Opera. And The Gorgon. He shot in Germany Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace in 1962 with Christopher Lee.
Sherlock Holmes and the Collar of Death.
We were making this picture in Berlin in 1963, I think it was. It was called Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace. Deadly is the word. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I must say, I really did look like Holmes.
And he was a director for hire at this point.
There are people who would love to be the victim of Dracula.
So Lippert approached him and they made The Horror of It All together in 1963.
The horror of it all.
Muldoon is my brother. Once he was as sane as the rest of us.
He ought to be put away someplace.
Once he even escaped from a straitjacket. With his teeth. I am the only one who can control him. With love, Mr. Robinson. I am a woman.
With the marvelous Andre Melly from Brides of Dracula, who you might know from covers or from the Benny Hill show, where she was a regular.
Excuse me, sirs. The way to spell womb is W-O-M-B. Womb.
The movie is basically a remake of The Old Dark House. The movie was released a few months before The Earth Dies Screaming in 1964, while The Last Man on Earth was already out.
Vampires, alive among the lifeless, that make the night hideous with their inhuman cravings.
So, why two movies with the same concept made the same year by one producer? I can assume that because Lippert owned the rights to I Am Legend novel, he had the idea of creating something similar in England at Shepperton Studios with Fisher, where they shot the horror of it all, with some additional exterior scenes at the village of Sheer. In a sense, because the creatures in I Am Legend are described more as a type of infected hybrid vampires, as you may have seen them in the 2007 remake with Will Smith. And because dead humans are coming back to life in The Earth Dies Screaming, we could say that Lippert is the one who influenced the whole zombie genre with those two productions. I hope it's fascinating for you as well to discover the origins of an entire subgenre, as it is for me.
We're here at the South Street Seaport, where the mayor has prepared transportation for many citizens to leave Manhattan. Now, this pandemic has spread faster than any other phenomena in human history.
Bonus trivia here. I Am Legend was not the first novel of its kind. You have to go back all the way to 1826 for that, and to read The Last Man by no other than Mary Shelley. Yes, the author of Frankenstein also envisioned a dystopian future where humans were eradicated by a plague. The novel was published only 3 times and was finally reprinted in 1965. Has it influenced Richard Matheson and subsequently the zombie genre? Maybe. Let us move to the first round of our dissection now, the artistic parts, direction and lighting. The film was shot in a very safe way, most likely with only one camera. The interior shots have better lighting conditions, while all the exterior shots look very plain, possibly with no additional light source other than the sun, covered by clouds mostly. Let's examine what I mean and what they could have done with a couple of extra lights. Would it make a big difference? Now, how about Fisher's direction? He played it safe, with close to zero trick shots or fancy movement of the camera. Most characters enter and exit frame, like in television productions. The costumes of the robots don't help the movie much, especially by today's standards. Fisher is known for asking for more blood or mud in previous productions, especially on Christopher Lee when he played The Mummy and Frankenstein or Dracula. So, why this one looks so clean without a hint of blood? One explanation is the influence of Doctor Who that started in 1963 with its 5th episode in December of that year introducing the Daleks.
You will move at last and follow my directions. This way. Immediately. Your legs are paralyzed. You will recover shortly, unless you force us to use our weapons again. In that case, the condition will be permanent.
Of course, it was a huge thing in England from day one. So, once you know that, you start seeing why the robots in The Earth Dies Screaming look like that. Why Fisher minimized the action and the violence, I guess, is because of the whole previous attempt of Hammer to film I Am Legend and the British censor board not allowing it. In the book Hammer Goes to Hell, The House of Horrors Unmade Films, by Kieran Foster, you can read about Matheson's screenplay version of his own novel called The Night Creatures. The BBFC refused to pass the screenplay. I don't know what that even means. How the hell can a board judge a script and not allow the producer to even film it? What was it? Blasphemy? Bestiality? Or too scary for the public and would cause panic with everyone starting killing each other? It's a damn script. Anyway, The Earth Dies Screaming does not contain any real horror scenes, probably because of that. The Last Man on Earth has a lot more action, suspense, and killings because it was shot in Italy. Apart from Vincent Price, for young viewers out there, if you don't know him, he's the voice in Michael Jackson's Thriller.
This is Vincent Price.
Now, you were on one of the biggest records of all time.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down will stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years. And grizzled ghouls from every tomb are closing in, seals or doom.
Price, who gave a wonderful performance, the other actors look like amateurs. In The Earth Dies Screaming, however, we only have 2 of those. The rest of the cast are professionals, and most of them well established.
Starring Willard Parker, Virginia Field, Dennis Price.
Their roles are not very dramatic or emotional, and because of lack of action, the whole movie feels exactly like a stage play. The interior scenes, however, in the house must have influenced the whole plot in Night of the Living Dead. The action parts come from Last Man on Earth. There is only one actor that received royal treatment, and that is Virginia Field, legendary actress from the golden age of Hollywood with a star at the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yes, I have everything in the world. Except the things I really want. I have no way of knowing whether you have any talent. But you convinced me that your love for the theater is real and honest.
It happens with some actors, especially when they get older. They demand a more blurry, angel-looking soft portrait. Not straight petroleum jelly on the lens. A couple of extra lights usually do the trick. For everyone else in the movie, it's like the week's new episode. It doesn't mean that the movie is bad. The opening establishing shots and the simplistic but effective depiction of chaos and death takes you for a ride. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't deliver what those opening shots promise. The actors didn't seem to understand much about horror. Their acting is influenced by mystery dramas and film noir, but not as dirty as some film noir movies were. No slapping, no hysteric moments, they don't run even when they're being chased. The robots don't look that indestructible. A few gunshots would put them down. The movie isn't made for a more sophisticated audience, and that is because Lippert made more money by producing simple movies for blue-collar workers, but times had changed. Let's compare this movie with a few well-known examples from around the same time.
How do you do?
The difference with the movies of Alfred Hitchcock from 63 and 64 is mainly the budget. Hitchcock wasn't exceptional in lighting and creating great portraits in the 60s. He did that in the past in his darker movies. The faces are usually flat and well lit, while in The Earth Dies Screaming, we have hints of shadows and strong contrast. If they had used stronger light sources, the movie could have come closer to Mario Bava's style, who, of course, was a master in art direction. Let's try fixing this shot to look more gothic, like in the style of Black Sunday, Mask of Satan. Now, let's see if we could go full giallo, if the movie was done in color. Something closer to Blood and Black Lace, that came out the same year. As science fiction, it cannot be compared to movies like Planet of the Vampires, again by Bava, but it also lacks the finesse of Last Man on Earth, which was also super wide, 2.3 to 1, not full 235 to 1, unlike The Earth Dies Screaming, which was 166 to 1. Let's see how it would look if we had equally super wide shots. There are shots that cannot be manipulated much. Yet, if the technology makes it easier for entire movies to be retouched perfectly, it can already be done, but it is incredibly time-consuming. This film could be in color and full widescreen. Would it gain a larger audience? Nope, only a few extra viewers. If you love movies in general, you can enjoy it once or twice, for the simple fact that even the countless Walking Dead spin-offs now are partly based on this film. Let us examine now how the editing of the movie works. I'm not going to go through the entire movie because I don't want to spoil it for you. Just a few examples and you will get the point. The editing is based on logic, with almost no subplots. It takes you from point A to point B, like in these shots here. This set of shots was considered suspenseful filmmaking back then. A dead body lies on the desk, with the lead actor grabbing that guy and bringing him to the other room in one long shot with slight panning. The dialogue scenes are mostly switching between all basic types of shots, a medium or cowboy shot to a two-shot to a close-up, simply old-fashioned style. A two-shot with a minimalistic camera movement. A long shot of the third actor coming towards the camera, ending up at a cowboy shot, then entering frame in the previous two-shot setup. Camera waits for the actor to arrive at the car for a slight pedestal move to reveal the empty seats, and then simple reaction shots until the lead enters frame to continue the dialogue in one shot. This scene has a dozen pair of two shots, until finally an actress approaches the window to check out what's happening outside. Some suspense scenes. They look as if they came from the 1930s. Again, very old-fashioned filmmaking. Could such a film benefit by a modern editing style? You are doing half of the editing while shooting the movie. You need more coverage and, honestly, more than one camera. Actors are getting easily tired on set and they cannot deliver great performances when exhausted. This movie wasn't supposed to be a masterpiece, and that is why most people still haven't heard of it. Now, how can we score movies and still manage to be subjective? For every category, I will give a score from 0 to 10. 10 categories altogether for a final number between 0 and 100. The categories are: 1. Direction and script. The movie gets a 6. 2. Photography. Barely a 4. 3. Camera. Again, a 4, and it is already more than it deserved. 4. Acting. I will give it a 6 because the actors are well trained, with 2 of them having no experience. 5. Set design. They didn't do that much. They hadn't created an entire set or anything, but they had a couple of crashed cars outside. It worked well, so it's a 5. 6. Costumes. No achievement here. If you consider the robots somehow iconic, I will give it a 4. 7. Special effects. Again, not much work in the whole movie, 2 explosions, a couple of gunshots, blind contact lenses, the insides of a robot. I will give it a 5. 8. Soundtrack. A well-made score by Elizabeth Lotjens, not exceptional, but I will give it a 7. 9. Sound design and sound effects. That's a 3, cannot get higher. 10. Editing. Basic but solid for what Robert Winter had to work with. It's a 6. There will be a special 11th category for all movies in case they played a significant role in film history. This category could potentially take a movie beyond 100, much like a Spinal Tap loudspeaker. I will give 5 extra points to this movie just because it co-created the zombie genre and because it was made by Terence Fisher. Final score, 55. I've got a very special movie for next time, one of the most disturbing movies ever made, that still holds up and can upset your stomach. But its story is truly different from what you might have believed about. Have a good one.
And you know, the whole point of the movie is to analyze it.
Dissection.
Dissection.
Dissection. Dissection.
It's dissection of...
Dissection.
I want you to analyze.
What's the meaning of this?
What do your insides look like?
We're going to do our first dissection now.
Systematic dissection.
What I'm asking is, in the reality of this movie,
I'm doing analysis. Get into the dissection.
then you have to analyze it. This movie is going to change your life. This version of the movie is going to suck.
I love your certificate. Dissection.
Dissection is directing.
I'm director of photography.
That is the star of this movie.
What, may I ask, is the meaning of this?
This is the end of the movie.